time allowed for discussion. You are requested to approach the microphone, state your name for the record, and limit the time used to present your remarks in order that others may be given an opportunity to speak. The normal process on any agenda item is for the chairperson to read the item from the agenda. The board is given an opportunity to comment on the issue and/or place a motion on the floor. The opportunity for discussion may be presented, at which time the public may participate, and a roll call vote will follow. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Clausen.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Item 4 on our agenda this morning is approval or amendment of the agenda. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the agenda as printed. And Mr. Chair, I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the agenda. Any discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Clausen.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Item 5 is something we always enjoy at our meetings. That's recognizing our employees for their years of service. This morning we have a 5-year service award for Emily Herring. She is a naturalist with the Conservation Board. So we're extending our expression and deep appreciation for her. Emily, would you please give everybody a short synopsis of what you do as naturalist?
Sure. So my job is to educate the public about the environment and encourage people to take practices to help with water quality and all different types of things related to nature. I tell kids that my job is to teach you about anything outside. So as naturalists have a knowledge about everything nature, and then sometimes we have things that we're more passionate about, but my day could be anywhere from going into an assisted living facility to taking kids fishing and canoeing and kayaking to going into the school and working with all ages of students from preschool all the way up to high school. So I have a lot of variety in my job, which is amazing, and I love coming to it.
Wonderful, that's great to hear. Dan, you want to get a picture in front of the flag?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Over here is really ugly, so.
Let's get semi out of the construction area.
Yeah, and you say, let's do the
Flag or
Stand in front of the
light might be better than. Yeah, let's do that, because that's kind of icky looking back there too.
congratulations, Emily. Thank you.
You don't need to stick around for
No, you can sure get out of here.
I think I will. I actually have another meeting that is supposed to be.
Perfect.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yep, you too.
That's a zipper deal there.
All 3 of them were good.
You mean I got through it without even closing my eyes?
Yeah, well, and you're not dealing with the sun over there, I think.
Okay. All righty, moving on to item 6 on our agenda this morning. This is the consent agenda. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Clausen.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay. On the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes for the October 26th meeting, 2021. Approve the claims as audited and authorize the county auditor and recorder to issue payment of the same. The listing of claims paid at this meeting and all claims paid in the current month will be published as part of the first meeting of the following month. We're also receiving the file on the recent Cooper test results from the Sheriff's Department. And we have manure management plans that have come in. First one is for Applegate G&L Farms, number 59073, 2845 Garwin Road. This is an annual update with no changes made. We also have a manure management plan update from Clemens Finisher Farm, ID 58020, 1460 120th Street, Clemens. This includes a 4-year complete plan. That we also have adopt resolution number 2021. No, that is
Nope,
the
that's the
end of
next.
the consent agenda. I'm not a real fan of this new
It just takes a while to
printout
get
on
used.
here.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to start drawing more lines.
I'll see what I can do about adding those.
I'll just get my pen out. It'll be easier. Item number 7 on our agenda this morning is to adopt resolution number 2021-0038. This is approving the assignment of certificate of purchase at tax sale of 906 South 11th Avenue, Marshalltown, Iowa, to the city of Marshalltown, Iowa. We have Jared on here to discuss this.
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me this morning?
We can. You want to give us a brief update on this, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to assign this tax sale certificate over to the city of Marshalltown, as it is, this one's back from 2010, so an 11-year-old tax sale certificate. It was taken on by one of our tax sale investors that basically would take on properties and then not do anything with them. So the city does have someone that's interested in taking over that property and basically taking care of it, because there's over about $10,000 in weed mowing special assessments. The tax sale amount $8,600 plus an additional $3,000 in delinquent tax, and the property's only assessed. It's just a lot. It's assessed at $10,000. So I think this is in the best interest to get this assigned, and that's all I have, unless any of you have any questions.
I don't have any. Do you, gentlemen?
No, we've done
Okay.
this before, so.
Okay,
That's your, yeah.
I fixed that. Okay, I'll entertain motions on this, adopting this resolution, please.
I would make a motion then to adopt resolution 2021-0038, approving the assignment of certificate of purchase of tax sale of 906 South 11th Avenue, Marshalltown, Iowa, to the city of Marshalltown, Iowa.
Mr. Chairman, I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to adopt this resolution. Any further discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Solosik.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 8 on our agenda this morning is the review and possible approval of selected project expenditures recommended by the Marshall County ARPA Committee to be paid from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, a total of $253,000. This project is recommended by the AR Committee on 10/21/2021. It's for an attorney-enhanced supervision drug court, mental health for 1 year of $253,060. Sarah, would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, I would love to. So the committee is recommending that the supervisors allocate $253,060 to fund a drug court. And you're all probably aware that for the last 5 years, we've had what's called an enhanced supervision court here in Marshall County, which is trying to fulfill the same role that a drug court would, but it's completely unfunded. So we can have 5 participants in the court at a time, but we're relying on SATUSI, the probation office, public defender's office, and the judge to donate their time to make this court work. So it's at a very low level without any funding. So the ARPA committee is recommending that a drug court be funded for 1 year. The drug court could serve 25 participants in 1 year, so that's much more than the 5 participants that are currently served. And it also has a mental health component to it. So originally, what was proposed to the ARPA committee was that we would fund 2 separate courts, a drug court and a mental health court for 3 years. And so this would be a great savings to the county from the current proposal. So we're proposing 1 year, and that it be a drug court with a mental health component. Many times when individuals have substance abuse addictions, there's a mental health component to it. So the probation office has estimated that about 8 of those 25 participants would need mental health treatment. So this court would fund personnel for the probation office. It would fund a probation officer to sit on. the drug court. A judge would be involved, but this doesn't provide funding for a judge. A judge would just do it as part of his or her work. It would provide funds for a public defender contract. So the people who are in drug court are on probation, and the way that we get them to comply is we offer both incentives and punishments if they don't comply. So if someone does not comply with drug court, we can file a probation violation, and they run the risk of going to jail or having other punishments against them. And so they have due process rights and have the right to have an attorney represent them in that phase. So that's why there's a public defender contract associated with it. Satusi, we would envision using Satusi to provide the substance abuse treatment. They're currently doing that with our enhanced supervision court, and it works well, but again, it's unfunded. And then Center Associates would be involved in providing the mental health component. So studies have shown that a multidisciplinary approach using all these different organizations is what works best. I believe that you guys received some information that was prepared for the committee with some statistics about drug court. But in our current enhanced supervision court, there have been 19 participants since it started in 2016. There are currently 5 who are actively participating. We've had 6 graduates, and of those 6 graduates, only 1 has incurred additional charges since graduating. So that's actually pretty successful. And if we can get 25 individuals through the court in 1 year, we think that we can have more success. The current enhanced supervision court serves high-risk offenders. So if we're able to serve 25 individuals in a drug court, we envision that we can serve both high-risk and moderate-risk offenders, which hopefully will increase the odds that they'll be successful, because when we bring the moderate-risk people into it, they should automatically have a higher likelihood of success. But one thing I would point out is, the county attorney's office really is in the business of responding to crime after it occurs and prosecuting offenders, and that's something that we're, I think, able to do successfully and help keep the community safe. But this is a really nice opportunity to try to get on top of some crimes before they occur. Now, obviously, everyone who is in drug court would have pending criminal charges and be on probation, but we have an opportunity to work toward rehabilitation for these individuals, and that helps them to be successful and hopefully not commit more crimes, but it also makes our community safer, and it hopefully results in some savings in the long term to the county in terms of not having as much crime to prosecute, the sheriff's office hopefully not having as many transports for people under mental health and substance abuse commitments. And so I'm really excited about the prospect of a drug court that's funded and can do some real good in this community, and hopefully have a positive impact both on the residents it serves and Marshall County as a whole. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I got a couple. With the state taking over mental health probably within the next 2 years, have they expressed any thoughts on this program? First question.
Sure.
Second, followed up, why isn't this supported by the judiciary's budget from the state?
So I have not heard that it's something that the state is going to fund. I think we've experienced in the county and in all municipalities that the state is funding less and less than they have in the past. So I'm not aware of any proposals that they fund something like this. I think that they're funding, other things that don't have a criminal justice component like a drug court. So I'm not aware of the state ponying up any money for something like this. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Why doesn't the judiciary have it in their budget?
I can't answer why they don't. I think that what I hear whenever I hear the judiciary talk about it is that they're trying to make do with less funds. I would love to see the judiciary fund something like this, but I'm not seeing it happening. There are lots of different drug courts throughout the state of Iowa, and they're all local drug courts, like this proposal is.
You had mentioned in our committee meeting that there was that some of them are getting funded from other sources. What were those other sources that if we can show some success, are those grants that? would help us out? Or was that that could have been
That might have been
Jordan
Jordan.
sharing that? He said there's some options there as we show some success.
I'd really like to talk to Senator Edler on this matter. And he is so deep in the state reworking mental health. And I know when we joined the region, we went into that with about $1.3 million in excess funding. And the state is making our mental health regions spend that money down, or they're going to grab it in the money grab. I'd love to see if we could get some dialogue going with Senator Edler and see what we can accomplish on the state level with this, and specifically come out of our region in mental health, because such a large proponent of this is the mental health proponent.
Yeah, so I might, can you guys hear me?
Is this Jordan?
Yeah, this is Jordan. I couldn't be there in person, so I'm participating remotely. I could kind of answer Chairman Thompson's and Nan's question on the funding component. So some drug court programs throughout the state do have funding appropriated to them by the state legislature. And so they're specifically funded in that manner. Some programs have applied for and have received grant funding on the federal level. Our particular program has applied for grant funding on the federal level, but we've never received that funding. And I do know, you mentioned Senator Edler. I do know that he's come in and observed our program on a few different occasions, and I believe he's generally supportive. I haven't talked with him or had a dialogue with him before this meeting today. But in the past, we've been hopeful maybe we could secure grant funding or legislative funding because we have the infrastructure already existing in our enhanced supervision court to serve these folks in our community. One of the things that ARPA funding might help us do is to just further demonstrate when we put in grants, because the ARPA funding would kind of be a bridge, hopefully, to securing grant funding or making a pitch for legislative funding if the legislative outlook improves at the state level. One of the things the ARPA funding would be helpful for, and I think it's important to note that these would be ARPA funds and not county general funds that would be appropriated towards the drug court, is that, if we had 25 seats in the seats every week, then we would have more data to generate to say, look, this community can support a drug court program and it's having a positive impact here. So I hope that answers the questions that Chairman Thompson and that Nan both raised.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that I believe this was brought to the ARPA committee, and it was unanimous that we bring this to the board.
There was one no.
There was one no.
Which was, we've had, the only two unanimous things we've had previously was my election stuff. Everything else, we've had a few dissenting.
Well, we've kind of had a tendency and a policy to treat this as one-time money.
It's one-time money. But if we can prove something, is what I keep thinking.
A bridge gap.
We've been working real hard to spend it on capital improvement things that would remove the burden from the property taxpayer.
This is also a measurable program.
I understand.
It's very black and white on that.
I'd really like to hear some more from the legislature on this before. That's just personally. I haven't spoken with Jeff, Senator Edler. I don't know what they're going to have on their legislative calendar this year, but this would definitely be something to work on. It'd be nice to get the state funding and the legislative funding.
From absolutely.
And
that's the hope.
And from the judiciary funding.
In the past, you've had 6 in the program.
We've had 5, we have 5 in the current program at a time, and 6 have graduated. We've had a total of 19 participants since it started in 2016.
So, and the reason you've just had that many was because that's all you could handle at that point?
Right, it's completely unfunded, so people are just essentially donating their time to make it work. I mean, there's such a commitment from these different organizations to try to make it work, but they can only handle 5 participants at a time because it's unfunded.
So on the 25, then that you would look at here on this ARPA fund, you're kind of guessing that there's 25, or there's more than 25, and you're just going to take 25, or?
So in consulting with the probation office about a drug court, and the current enhanced supervision court follows a drug court model, just without funding. That's what they believe that they could handle in a time frame of 1 year. So this is just based on projections, based on what they've done with the current enhanced supervision court and just supervising other probationers. The estimate that 8 of those 25 individuals would need mental health treatment is an estimate that I obtained from the probation office based on their current numbers of people that they're supervising.
Okay.
Are you wanting to table this at this time?
I would like to, yes, if we could. I'm texting Edler now.
Okay.
I doubt I'm gonna get an answer that quick.
Well, let's do that and try and pull our end together a little bit more.
It seems strange to me that they fund them in other counties and they're not funding them here. If this is such a successful project, there's no reason it shouldn't be funded. Literally statewide, if there's a program.
So I think Jordan can probably speak more to that than I can, but the impression I've gotten from funding just different things in general is that when the local county or municipality shows that they've got some skin in the game, basically, and they're trying to put some funds into it, I think that might make it easier to get funds from the state or from some sort of grant. But Jordan might have more information about that than I do.
So it amounts to about $10,000 per person then for the program. If we do 25.
Right.
I think maybe, so that would be 25 seats in the seats every week, right? So, sorry, I can't tell if can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be 25 people in every seat every week, and you know we'll have some people who have their probation revoked. They're not successful in the program and they're out of the program. But we have enough volume, which is both good and to say for your community when it comes to substance abuse addiction issues. We'll have enough volume that we can put another person in that seat after somebody is either revoked or they graduate, or for any reason they just no longer qualify for the program, like if they were to move out of state or something like that. So it's 25 people. The idea is 25 people at a time, but we will be able to bring in new people when a spot would open up, if that makes sense.
So it could touch maybe 30 to 35 people in a year's time then. Is that fair to say?
Right. And the program itself generally runs about 18 months from start to finish between phase 1 and graduation after phase 5. So if someone's successful, it generally takes about a year and a half to work through the program itself.
For this amount of money, obviously you won't start day one with 25 people in the seats immediately. So with this amount of money, would it actually probably take a little longer than a year to spend? Because you're just not geared up. It isn't like you're going to start January 1 and be able to.
Right. The participants would all have to get together and come up with a plan and memorandum of understanding and probably a 2080. Yes.
Well, and just getting the people identified.
Right.
Because I'm guessing it's very labor intensive up front, I'm sure, getting people into the program and understanding the parameters of the program.
Right, and like Jordan said, the good thing is we do have the infrastructure in place. It's just taking it to
another level.
Yes, but you're right. It would
you
take
can't
a little
just
bit of time to get it up.
Yeah.
Right.
I normally get instantly back.
I think the program is workable. Obviously, you've shown that. I'd like to see us pull some other people involved or other monies into this. that may take us a week or two to figure out, and I would move to table this item until our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table, on the table to table this. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
I would imagine Senator Edler is in the field putting down anhydrous or something, because I normally get almost an instantaneous text back from him. And I've got nothing. Let me check with the senator and also with Senate leadership and House leadership and see if they've got anything on the books this year that they're going to look at considering this, and see what we can come up with from the state level. And also probably talk to legislative services and see if they're going to do anything out of the judicial budget. I have no idea where they're at right now, but we can find out pretty quick.
Sure.
Hopefully.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 9 in our agenda this morning is to approve the Clerk of Court District Scanning Project Statement of Work between Marshall County, Iowa and the Judicial Branch, HOV Services Incorporated. Earlier this year, we approved $150,000 in our budget to go towards scanning all the records that were within the courthouse that are in the state's possession, so that they can be digitalized, so that these records don't have to come back in and be stored in extremely expensive real estate. Since then, was it the state that requested that we do this, or?
Basically, I think you all approved this maybe in 2018, and we've been moving this money forward each budget
Yes.
year. We've just been continuing to save it, and I did have to email to certify that, yes, this money was still in our budget. And then the statement of work came forth for the signature to get this, kind of get it rolling, which is great, because until they start the work, until we get this, they can't even start. So
And
I'm
I'm-
excited that we've actually got
The way I
further than
remember-
conversations.
The way I remember it, our $150,000 gets spent first.
Yes. And I don't know if that's really how it's going to happen. I haven't heard a number, but I've seen some estimates on other scanning projects for my books. It's not a cheap
No.
thing to do, but it's forever, and it just makes everything so much more accessible, and it can be safeguarded. Obviously, a lot of their records are more confidential. There's things that are confidential versus my real estate books are public records, so it is a different way there, but they can handle all that.
Dan, do you know how far back they're going to be going to start this process?
Everything that was in the annex.
Because I did come across a request for some, a murder case file, 1909.
I don't think we can throw that away anyway.
I have that. These records are getting very fragile. They're falling apart. I think the historical value of those can't really put a price tag on them. I didn't know how far back they were going to do this.
Yeah, and what I don't know is, I've always been told you got to keep everything from murder trials forever, but is scanning it enough that we can get rid of the paper pieces? And I assume it is, because like you say, things start to deteriorate.
Somehow they have to be preserved, I think. And with our facility, we're doing what we can, but it takes something like a tornado to run those records forever.
I know in the ARPA committee, we've got, my record books scanning. I know there's also sheriff, treasurer, and engineer. So we've got those items listed on our ARPA for scanning, and I would think that would be where we'd pick that up. We've actually got somebody coming in next week to begin that process. So we're kind of thinking when we find one platform, then we can all stick to the same platform. So yeah, that'd be a good option. And I know what you mean by things falling apart.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll take motions on this item, please.
Do we really need a motion on this since it is already?
We just have to
Been
approve
approved?
The signing of
the signing
the
of
statement
it.
of work.
Okay, I will go ahead and make a motion and to approve Clerk of District Court scanning project statement. Statement of work between Marshall County and the Iowa Judicial Branch and HOV Services Incorporated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the statement of work. Any further discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes,
Patton.
Yes.
motion carries. Item number 10 comes up annually, is to set the Marshall County Employee Floating Holiday for 2022. This is discussion and possible action. I know Sherry's put quite a bit of work into this on possible days, and Nan, do you have any suggestions also?
We're still going to be at the bank
Yeah, I know.
next year, in 22. So kind of the way, I know Sherry's looked at a lot of dates, the way Christmas falls. I know Christmas has always been kind of a time frame where we've done before in previous years, but now with it being on the weekend and having a Christmas holiday that we can put around that,
Well,
it seems like these other options here are some good options.
and our other fly in the ointment, so to speak, is evidently the bank is changing somewhat, where you may have one institution recognizing one holiday and shutting down for it, and another banking system may not. Is that also going to create an issue?
For the holidays that Sherry has listed here with Juneteenth, Martin Luther King, and Columbus Day, I believe these are all federal holidays, so the FDIC is closed, so the
Okay.
bank won't be open.
So it's not going to make any difference.
Mm-mm.
That was my presumption.
Yeah, I've checked the Federal Reserve and those dates are closed.
Have you had any discussion with any of the other elected officials or department heads as to what,
I've not.
you know, the most important is we cover most of the people between you and Jarrett's office.
Yeah, and is Jarrett, are you still on, Jarrett? Do you have a preference on this?
No, I don't. On a complete separate issue, if the bank is closed on, for that Juneteenth or whatever that new holiday is, that's currently scheduled as their tax sale date is the third Monday in June. So I'll need an alternative location for that. So I'll have to get with you guys on that. As for the particular floating holiday, I have no preference.
Unless there's an election, Nan just said we can use the fire station facility for that.
I got to see if we're done with, so our primary is June 7th, so we should have canvass by the 14th. So that should work fine on the 20th.
Okay,
The election would be closed.
That sounds good.
So
any
then
preferences?
There's no other holidays in June or even May, is there?
Well, there's the Memorial Day.
Are we already taking Memorial Day off, or?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's already one of our holidays.
Yeah.
So May 30th.
January, we would have the Martin Luther King Day and New Year's Day. I think no matter where we put it in, the only one that wouldn't double up on anything would be Columbus Day.
I'm just going to add one more food for thought. When we were meeting to fill out some security documents for Judge Jennifer Miller with Joel and Ben, we had talked about having, using one of these type holidays probably after we get back in the courthouse and get things a bit more settled, but using it for a day that we close, because a lot of people think we're closed anyway, and using it for employee training countywide. So I may have a preference with doing one of those earlier dates versus that October 10th, just for that reason, that maybe we'll be back in the courthouse and we can do some training on October 10th.
And it seems we always struggle with the court's calendar and our calendar. Have we interacted on that as to what meshes up as to
You usually
possibly
take
looking at
different-
one of these?
We usually, our office takes Martin Luther King off because the courts are closed and we work on President's Day. That's how we
Marks.
make that work.
If that's
I
it,
think there
if
should
the
be some
courts,
thought in the future and starting to maybe align some of those dates together, because it's difficult for security being, you know, the courts need to be open, 1 through 3 is closed, but 4 and 5 is open. That's kind of a weird time to have the courthouse semi-open, and
Well-
aligning some of those dates, I think, is a smart decision in the future.
if the courts are here and everybody
Yeah.
else
Well,
isn't,
yeah.
that involves buildings and grounds and also courthouse
Mhm.
security.
Yep.
So from that standpoint, I would say the most logical thing would probably be for us to do Martin Luther King Day.
Mhm.
And then would you, down the road, change the policies so
We
that
would,
our
after we get-
President's Day would-
Yeah, after we get back in, we will be
It's a
updating the
smart thing
holidays
to
on
look
the
at in the
personnel
future.
policy.
It is.
Yeah, it's on my
Yep.
personnel policy list.
We've always worked at trying to get the court's calendar and ours synced up.
Yeah, and that was one I didn't know when we updated the personnel policy, but don't worry, I have a long list.
I'll entertain motions on this item if anybody is so inclined.
So are we taking out Martin Luther King then? Or what do we decide there? That not till,
I would say that's the one we do.
I think that's one we do.
we do that one?
Mhm.
Mhm. So it would be basically Martin Luther King, January 17th.
Would be our floating holiday for 2022.
Mhm. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the floating holiday for 2022 as this is presented to us then.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the floating holiday as Martin Luther King Day, Monday, January 17th, 2022. Any further discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 11 on our agenda this morning is to approve a second-level plan administrator appeal to the Marshall County Medical Benefit Plan. Discussion and possible action to consider a claim deviation appeal to the Marshall County Medical Benefit Plan. Nan, would you bring us up to speed on this?
There was a document you provided, which was redacted, so you don't know who it's for. And it's went through, level 1 is actually with the administrator, with Health Partners, so that's the level 1. They denied it because it was experimental type for seeing how it helps the outcome for this person. So I think you guys had, there was about 4 or 5 pages there to read, correct? I'd never seen the redacted document that came in.
I don't know if I did either.
Did we not get that? Okay, did you never seen anything?
I did not see it.
This needs to be tabled until you can read that document.
I would
So,
make a motion then that we table this.
okay.
So it wasn't just me that just didn't see it?
No,
Okay,
I didn't see
good.
it. I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to table this matter. Any further discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Slosson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Is time of the essence on this matter? Okay,
We can hit it next meeting.
okay, so we don't have to do a special. Okay. Item 12 on our agenda this morning is resources available for the opioid-affected individuals in Marshall County. This is discussion only. Jordan, did you want to address this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Very good. So I wanted to get this information in front of the board because most likely this is going to take a legislative decision and action on your part. So what's happened is, several states brought litigation against opioid manufacturers and distributors, and all this has been in the news. I'm sure you're aware. And Iowa joined in that litigation. And what's happened is a number of those companies, 3 of the distributors and 1 of the manufacturers have engaged in settlements with the states. And what's going to happen is, as part of those settlements, significant funds will be allocated across the states that have participated. And Iowa signed on to the settlements, and it looks as if over a period of about 18 years, something around the range of $170 million will be allocated to Iowa. What happens after that is that the counties and the cities have to decide if they're going to participate in the settlement. Some local governments had their own litigation brought against manufacturers and distributors. Marshall County, we did not. So we would have the opportunity to participate in the settlement here and receive some funds over a period of a number of years that would be appropriated for prevention of opioid abuse and to help folks with substance abuse treatment issues who have, essentially taken oxycodone or hydrocodone and have developed a substance abuse problem. So this litigation and this settlement could put us in position to have resources to share specifically for opioid abatement in terms of prevention and substance abuse treatment mitigation. It's important to note that the funds could only be used towards opioid abatement. So those funds from the settlement could not be used towards, prevention or treatment of folks, who have been diagnosed with a substance abuse disorder. Insofar as alcohol or methamphetamine would be concerned, it would only be those opioid affected individuals who would be who would qualify for assistance under these funds. And I believe I forwarded on some information to the board, and I hope you have it in front of you. And they kind of gave the counties and cities an aggressive deadline to participate and sign on, and that deadline is January 2nd of 2022. And we should be receiving more information in terms of what kind of release will be required of, Marshall County if we were to decide to participate, and what that would look like and what those documents would look like. But because the timetable here is pretty aggressive for communities like ours to decide if we want to participate, I just wanted to get some of this information in front of the board, and so that you guys could be informed. I'm sure you're already informed, but I just wanted to make sure I was doing my part as well. Does anybody have any questions?
We watched that program from ISAC the other day in my office, and that's been recorded if anybody wants to go back and look at that. Would there possibly be any usage if we did get into this agreement with the state to use any of these funds with the opioid portion of it towards the drug court?
It's possible that some could be allocated for that purpose, but because the limitation is that these funds can only go towards opioid issue abatement, if we have a methamphetamine affected individual, the monies from the settlement couldn't be used to assist in that person's treatment and recovery, if that makes sense. So we have to target specifically the opioid abuse. And I believe, based off of the discussions that we've had, that, if somebody has essentially moved on from opioid abuse to the street level opiates in combination with opioid abuse, that kind of substance abuse treatment would still qualify. But it's really kind of a narrow focus that the settlement has in terms of opioid abuse. And the reason for that is that, these manufacturers and distributors, in participating in the settlement would be addressing the responsibility that they've had for individuals who have become, addicted to opioids, but, they wouldn't necessarily bear that sort of responsibility towards methamphetamine addiction or cocaine addiction or alcohol addiction because, they're not manufacturing or distributing those materials.
What action do we need to take here today on this item?
Well, we can't.
So this-
discussion,
Okay, this was for discussion only today,
but
but
our
you
next meeting,
you mentioned we got a pretty tight timeline on this.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So we should be receiving the settlement documents in terms of release and participation agreement, and we'll have those to review. I haven't reviewed or received anything yet. I've just signed on Marshall County to receive more information as more information and documentation becomes available, so that essentially this community can and the board can decide if our community would like to participate and receive any funds for these purposes. But that should be coming at a future time, and I'd be happy to connect with the board again in the future.
When you get those documents, would you please make sure that we get it on our agenda immediately so we don't miss any timelines, both for a discussion and an action item?
Of course.
Any other questions or discussion or comments?
no, I think, yeah, as soon as we can do it, it's next.
Okay, Jordan, do you have anything else to add?
No, I do not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and everybody for listening.
Appreciate your time. Anybody else on this matter? Okay, we're going to move on to item number 13 on our agenda this morning. This is public forum. This is a time set aside for the public to make comments on topics of county business other than those listed on this agenda. No action will be taken on any of these topics brought up in the public forum. We've got some pretty good news that has come in from our insurance and other things. Man and Lucas were on it yesterday. Could you guys please give us a construction update, and especially on the financial end of it?
Yeah.
Can I do one quick before, so I don't forget it after?
Absolutely.
At 2 o'clock today, we have our first canvass for the city school election from last week. So there's a second one on the 16th for the school districts that things cross county lines. So there's step 1 and step 2.
Are we going to do those in the boardroom,
We're
or
going
are
to
we
do
going to
it,
do them in here?
we're actually going to do it here. So if anybody wants to join by Zoom, they can.
I spoke with Dave the other day after the kind of recent TR article and some grumblings on social media. We kind of thought it was a good idea to sit down again and give everybody a timeline of how this project has progressed through, more specifically on the interior of the project. Everybody can see the outside. They know that work is progressing. We see people working, but not everybody gets to see the inside of the building. So I just want to kind of give a timeline of where we're at and how we got here. Starting way back at the beginning in October of 2018, we got our original kind of review set from our architects, OPN, to sit down and just kind of turn pages at that point and say, do we like this layout? At that time, we met with all the departments in the courthouse and talked about their space individually and what their needs are and what their wants were. And that was a fairly long process, but we made it through. We had some significant delays in that portion, and as well with our insurance company over some code issues or differences of opinion on what we thought should be code covered and what the insurance company thought should be code covered. But we settled that. Let me make sure I get my date right here. We settled that in October of 2020. So it took 2 years from our first initial package to review to where we settled with our insurance company in the end of 2020. And actually, really quickly after that, we started work on the interior in January of this year. So at this point, we are 11 months deep on the actual work and reconstruction of the interior of the job.
Yeah, that code discussion we had was, like you said, October 23rd. It took till between Christmas and New Year's to get the document signed.
Yeah.
So things did proceed for us to begin work actually in January quite well.
Yeah, and actually, we as a county expedited that process too. Once we felt that we were close in our discussions with our insurance company, we said that we were going to basically cover that cost and move the project forward. So we did, we worked really hard at expediting this. We have had some delays on the interior, in July 23rd of this year, we changed general contractors, and we decided to part ways with Perfection First On Site. They had a couple of names through this process, and honestly, in my opinion, realizing that you have a general contractor that's not up to the job in 7 months is probably a better time frame than a lot of big projects have. They started out the project really well on the exterior, but when we got down to where we needed really detailed work and the process of submittals and RFI questions, they were just kind of in over their heads at that point. So that happened July 23rd. Bryholtz Construction was a subcontractor at that point. We promoted them to a general contractor August 3rd of this year, and really work hasn't stopped in this entire time in the interior of this job. So in the newspaper, we said that the project is 15 to 20% completed. With that being said, probably 95% of the demolition and structural steel are done, and those are big parts of this project that take a lot of time. So when we say we're 15 to 20% done, that's without that demolition and rework of all the structural stuff inside this building.
It's 15 to 20% done on our rebuild.
Yeah. So, if you take out demolition and structural steel, we basically call that zero, and we're 15, 20% past that. So it's, I just really wanted to let people know, let the public know, we don't have a lot of outputs to really reach out to the public, and this is a good place for them to be informed and have this information ready to go.
It was a little disconcerting to read the newspaper article, which kind of implied we were only 15 to 20% done with the project, when that didn't include all of our structural issues, the demolition, all the planning, the scope of work that led up to where we're at today.
Exterior,
we're way past 50%.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. We've
pouring
been
the floor, pouring the third floor too.
Yeah.
Tearing that up.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
that's all
That was a
demo.
big
It's all
project.
demo.
Yeah, there are there has been a lot of work that has been done, and I don't, that when we say that 15 to 20% number, it's deceiving. It's a deceiving number. So we've worked very hard. So with all that being said, we got our final bid numbers from our new general contractor yesterday, and they look really good, actually. So our original bid from Perfection, which was what we would call base bid. So we had base bid, and then as we get into it, there are changes. We call them ASIs. At this point, we're up to 37 ASIs. So without the ASIs involved, Perfection's original estimate for the entire interior of the project. Now, we break the interior of the project down into 3 different buckets. We have an owner responsibility, which is what Marshall County has decided to do above and beyond insurance scope. We have a bucket for code items, so code mandated upgrades or updates that we had to do. We have a separate bucket of money for that, and then there's what is the storm responsibility, which is what EMC pays. So Perfection's original estimate for all three of those things was $8,727,500. We'll just keep them simple here. Our bid or our estimate from Perfection, from Dryholtz yesterday with 36 changes that
37.
we've incurred.
Because the 38th is a new one that's not being counted.
Okay, all right. With 37 changes is a little over $500,000 less. So our original estimates were a very doable number for us. You know, we were monetarily wise with our budget, we were right where we needed to be. But with all of the changes that we've made and the upgrades that we've made from the original bid with our new contractor, our responsibility at this point is $500,000 less than our original estimate.
And that's the county's portion of it.
That is, sorry, that is the
Total?
entire, that's the entire project. So
Okay.
when we think about the project, about 69% of it is storm and code, which is the original insurance responsibility. So really, we're paying 21% of that $8.2 million.
Yeah. One good thing on the code numbers, we settled with them, and we had our mediation, we settled with them, signed the documents. We have that money. So right now, Marshall County is paying the code directly. It doesn't go through EMC. That's all us. For the interior, also, they have given us an amount of money similar to when you're at home and you need your roof fixed. They get you 60% of the money to do the work, and when you show it's done, you get the rest. That's where we're at right now. So we've got some of the funds to pay for this until we get past the point where we can show, hey, we're past your 60%, now we want more money.
Okay, so from a financial standpoint, this was extremely good news.
This was
Yes.
great news. One of the pieces probably of that 500,000 is you got to remember that the general contractor's percentage went from 12% to 7%. But the big thing, when we first were looking at this, is the 37 ASIs, 37 change orders that were included in this. It was good. There's been a lot of things that Barholtz has found as they've looked at this, and they need to get the subcontractors caught up. The subcontractors have not been paid yet through July 23rd. This was a bigger project doing this analysis than they thought. I have their bills here that I'm going to ask for you all to review and initial. We've got to get an approval from OPN, but I'd like to, when we get that approval from our OPN, have you all signature saying, yes, we can pay this ahead of 2 weeks from now. They're cash flowing a lot, and that really isn't their job. They're a general contractor and not a bank.
Has our insurance company held us up at all on this,
No.
or is this just doing the
So-
paperwork in between the two
Yeah, this is
changes of
just a
contract?
between.
Yeah.
So now that we actually have all these breakouts, we'll take that, the storm portion, go back to the insurance company and say, hey, here's our update, and we imagine
and
they
it went
say,
down.
they imagine they say, thank you for saving us money.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty easy, but we'll get them all the updated information and, you know, the percentages and all that.
So to the county specifically, with the change that we've made, our responsibility decreased about $300,000 between, I added code into that as well, because the code money we settled. If there's extra responsibility on top of that, I think it's our responsibility, but it should be minimal at this point.
This really helped our code number, because with some things that we were discussing with Perfection, they'd found some more things that were code. Of course, we've already settled. And so there was going to be, you know, do we want to go back into that for, you know, it was just under 100,000 if my memory serves me correctly. And it's like, I don't know if we're going to fight that. Well, now
It could
the-
cost us that. So-
It could. So
Yeah.
you don't really want to, and even if they'd be willing, but now with this, it went down. So I think we're sitting pretty good
It's
on
pretty
that
minimal.
too.
I would let that sleeping dog
Yeah.
lie.
I think, yeah, opening that up again just didn't make,
Nope.
but we had to offer that information and tell you where we were at, because the numbers changed.
Yeah, by the time we paid,
Paid the attorneys and the mediator and paid everybody, that they're the only people that were gonna make any money.
Well, it was nice
nothing
after
against
that.
attorneys.
My daughter's one too, so I get it.
It was nice after that meeting yesterday to get good news for a change.
It was, and they've worked really hard at balancing things and balancing with each subcontractor what has been paid. Well, we're gonna get into more detail with them on some of the things they found. We still need to go back to First On Site now for our damages, and one of the things they're also working on is the site here, and going back to them with that as well.
Our biggest damage is gonna be in that server room.
That we've got most of that information. James has one or two more line items of costs to get, and then we've got that spreadsheet ready. We've got the election items that they've damaged ready.
And our site.
And now our site is the piece, and he said he was close to that yesterday. I think we'll have it this week.
There's some other small stuff that we need to gather. You know, there are storage fees we're paying for things because we were told the timeline. You know, and then
Now we're
you know,
paying
we're looking at
storage.
a timeline, and now we order things, and the timeline was never correct. So now we're paying storage fees on all furniture and refurbished items and just materials that we don't have any place to put in the building. So there's a long list of damages.
It was nice to come up to yesterday's meeting that I walked in on you guys on and have to fight to find a place to park in the parking lot because it was full of vendors doing work.
Best news ever.
It was very pleasurable.
That's a pretty, there's obviously more detail to it, but there's a good general update for everyone. So when people ask, hey, what's going on, you can send them to our YouTube page. Watch the last 15 minutes.
All right. Anything else to add? Okay. Anybody else got anything on public comment? Anybody that is joining us on YouTube or any other means with public comment? There being none, we're going to move on to adjournment. The next regular session is November 23rd, 2021 at 9:05 a.m. All business to be acted upon at that session should be submitted to the County Auditor Recorder's Office or the Board of Supervisors' Office by Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 at 12 p.m. There being no further business to come before the board, this meeting is